Can you take my word for it? We don't want to take that ocean cruise no more. Yes? Now, folks, our enemy is denial. Denial's just this great big fluffy white blanket we all pull up our eyes and pretend the bad end is gone. So I want to make this clear. I'm going to start with the pop quiz. Oh, no. Nobody said it'd be a test. How many kids killed by school fire in all of America the last 50 years? Total kids killed, school fire, America, 50 years. Anybody? Zero. It was exactly 60 years ago in Chicago, last time any American kid was killed by school fire. How many kids killed by violence? Well, you know, we had a pretty good DOJ report. Told us in the 97-98 school year, we had 57 dead by violence in American schools and 250,000 serious injuries. How many killed by fire that year? Zero. Now, if you know anything about it, well, Dave, the 97-98 school year, that's year of the Jonesboro School Massacre. I know, I was there on the night of the Jonesboro Massacre. By the way, what I call it, the Jonesboro what? Massacre. Please stop calling these horrible mass murder shootings. A shooting is what happens on the range every day. Do you understand? We're in such denial, we can't even call these crimes what they are. Mass murders, massacres. Anybody remember the Boston Massacre? One thing set off the American Revolution. Remember that? 5 dead in the Boston Massacre. Anybody remember St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Mobsters murdered 7 mobsters outside Chicago. Add them up. Add up the Boston Massacre, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You still got more dead at Columbine. Double that number. You still got more dead at Sandy Hook or Virginia Tech. Why can't we call the crimes what they are? Mass murders, massacres. Instead, we call them shootings. And a shooting is what happens on the range every day. Do you understand? Shooting is not a criminal act. And what do we call the most horrible mass murders in history? Shooters. The Sandy Hook shooter, the Virginia Tech shooter. Cops are shooters. They are murderers. Do you understand? Look, active shooter response. We'd be real busy during deer season. Yeah. Every time you hear that phrase, active shooter response, a little light goes off that this guy's in denial. Can't even call it what it is. Active killer. And he might have knives. He might have bombs. Well, I'm prepared for a shooter. He might. I am told we actually had a teacher say in an incident, he wasn't shooting. He's not an active shooter. I wasn't sure if the training applied. Had to be an English teacher. Yeah. And then we say, we'll get the cops there right away. And at an unconscious level, shooters are bad. Another shooter's not going to help things. Do you understand? If the shooter's bad, then getting a cop there is not going to help each other. Another shooter. Shooters are not bad. The cops are shooting to save lives. They're murderers. Do you understand? So yeah, I was there, not at the Jonesboro Massacre. That was a hard year. But in the 06-07 school year, we had a new record dead by violence. 63 dead by violence. And folks, what do you want to bet? The year of the Sandy Hook School Massacre, or 27 bodies in Sandy Hook Elementary School alone. What do you want to bet that year was a new record dead by violence? I don't know, because that year the feds stopped reporting the data. Poof, report gone. Around the world, you'll see a pattern of crime reports disappearing. I guarantee you, I believe with all my heart, the day of the Sandy Hook Massacre, that year was a new record dead by violence. Meanwhile, how many killed by fire? 0. So folks, help me assign a grade. All you educators out there, help us assign a grade. What kind of grade do we give the firefighter for keeping a kid safe from fire? What's our fire grade? Even the cops, reluctantly give the firefighter an A. Oh, you don't understand. The cops say, dang firefighters. Yeah. They sleep till they're hungry and eat till they're tired. Repeat as necessary. They walk in the door and they get an A. Yeah? So what do we get for keeping the kids safe from violence? What's our grade? Nobody gets an F anymore. How about needs improvement? Yeah? Can we all agree little Johnny needs improvement? We said, Johnny, why can't you be like little Jimmy firefighter? Denial, denial. Look at the ceiling. Look at all those little white dots. Those are sprinklers. Hey. And under the ceiling panels is the smoke alarms. And of course, some panels are fireproof material. Drop you down the old fire exit sign. That ain't just any fire exit sign. There's a battery backup when the world ends. It'll still be lit. Fire exit sign. Yeah. And the wall boards are code selected material that's fireproof, fire retardant material. The concrete slab foundation, your feet, the carpet on top, the sequin is sitting on the table in front of you are code selected because they're fireproof, fire retardant material. There is not one blessed thing in this room that would burn. You see, we have fire sprinklers, fire exits, fire alarms, fire trucks, fire drills, fire hydrants, fire extinguishers. This fire guy, is he crazy? This fire guy, is he paranoid? We all agree he's our A student. And half the cost of a modern school building goes into fire code. Easily half the cost. Fireproof material versus cheapest alternative, and on and on and on. And yet, when it comes to violence, most of us refuse to do anything. So I want to stop and just do kind of one over the world for you. You know, I train worldwide. I train all over feds. I train in all 50 states. I want you to understand just how bad the situation is. And folks, I want to tell you something right now. And I want you to burn it into your neurons and never let go of it. The number one factor holding down the number of dead kids in our schools is medical technology. The docs are saving ever more lives every year, yes? A wound that 9 out of 10 times would have killed you in World War II, the modern battlefield, 9 out of 10 times you survived the same wound, yes, yes? And the same thing is true in our streets and our schools. A major UMass Harvard study, peer-reviewed journal, irrefutable data. If we had 1970s technology, the murder rate would be 4 times what it is. And this data is 20 years old. The leaps and bounds of life-saving technology the last 20 years are astounding. But folks, let's go back. Let's go back. 63 dead by violence. And the 06-07 school year multiplied by at least 4. That's how many would have died with 1970s technology. Understand? Add up the number of people murdered in Chicago. 600 so far this year, multiplied by at least 4. That's how many would have died if we had 1970s medical technology. With me on this? The number of dead kids out there just completely underrepresents the situation. The medical technology is holding down the murder rate. So year after year after year, folks, the number of people murdered in America has been coming down. The population's up. The number of, not just the murder rate, the number of people murdered year after year has been coming down. Down, 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 blip up, down, 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 blip up. And then in 2015, something very bad happened. In 2015, we had 1,700 more Americans murdered the year before, and that number should be coming down. In 2016, now all the 2015 data is in my new book, and we'll be giving those away there, but in 2016, we had 1,300 more. This is compound interest. If it had stayed the same, it would be bad. Folks, this is an explosion of violence like nothing we've ever seen before. And then we got cops murdered in the line of duty. Every year, cops have better tactics, better training, better technology, better body armor. Every year, medical technology is saving the lives of our cops. The number of murdered cops have been coming down for decades because of body armor, tactics, training, technology. Now, last year, we had a 61% increase in the cops murdered in the line of duty. In spite of all the tactics and training, the technology. Folks, this is an explosion of violence, a tsunami of violence across our entire civilization. And I want you to understand that it isn't just America. We're going to zoom out in a little bit and look further. But, you know, here's a snapshot from the UN on the 20 most homicidal nations in the world. The top 10, Honduras, Venezuela, Jamaica, Belize, Colombia, El Salvador, Guatemala, all Latin America. And by the way, the U.S. is 4 murders per 100,000. Honduras is 103. And remember, the murder rate underrepresents the problem. Even in these nations, that their technology is having an impact on saving lives. You may have heard that Mexico is at war. Mexico is at open warfare with the criminal gangs. And in Mexico's war with the cartels, there's more loss of life than Iraq and Afghanistan put together. Mexico is at war with more loss of life than Iraq and Afghanistan put together. And Mexico don't make the top 10. Mexico is number 14. Iraq is number 19. I would far rather take my family to vacation in Iraq than I would to Mexico. Do you understand? And this is new. This is new. Folks, there was a day, if you lived in El Paso, you lived in San Diego, you pop down to Juarez, you pop down to Tijuana, have a nice meal, do a little shopping. Ain't nobody popping down to Juarez for a meal no more. This is new. Around our planet, we see this catastrophic breakdown of dynamics. And so, folks, Here it is in a nutshell. My first book on killing, translated into 8 languages, 500,000 copies sold, perennial bestseller. It's on the Marine Corps Commandant's required reading list, and it's a required reading list in peace studies programs in Berkeley. How do you make Berkeley and the Marine Corps happy with the same book? Huh? You just tell the truth. We're all on the same side. So folks, here it is in a nutshell. People point to some horrible crime. Oh, that proves we're all killers. No, that's an outlier. You give me a big enough population, enough time, I'll give you every possible outlier, yes? You explain to me the 99% of our citizens who will go a lifetime, never kill anybody, and never try to. Explain that. 330 million Americans bounce off each other every day. We got divorce, infidelity, layoff, traffic accidents, and over 99% of our citizens will go a lifetime, never kill anybody, and never try to. Explain that. Inside most healthy members of our species is a powerful resistance against killing our own kind. And the military and law enforcement know how to overcome that resistance. Sociopaths don't have the resistance, but healthy people have to be taught to kill. Healthy people have to be trained to kill. Pop-up targets, photorealistic targets, simulators. We make killing a conditioned response, like a pilot in a flight simulator, like a kid in a fire drill. Healthy people have to be taught to kill. Pop-up targets, photorealistic targets, simulators. And oh, by the way, the video games are doing the exact same thing to our kids. The AMA, the APA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Surgeon General after Surgeon General screaming from the mountainside. The new factor in the equation are the sick movies and the sick TV shows and the sick video games around the planet. So there's kind of one over the world, if you will. Hey, let's just zoom in on Europe real quick. Interpol began to collect data in 1977. As reported by Interpol, violent crime per capita, again, we're ignoring the murder rate. The far more accurate and hard to get data is the rate at which people are trying to kill each other off. Comparing between nations breaks down, but the increase in the nation is what's important. And violent crime doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples in nation after nation. Folks, Norway has 1,000 years of crime data, 10 centuries of crime data. And never in 1,000 years has it changed by more than 10, 20% a generation. Now it's exploded. By the way, why does my data stop in 03? Why don't I update my slide? Anybody want to guess? They stopped reporting the data. Go to the Interpol website, look up their biannual crime report. They stopped reporting the data because the member nations did not want people comparing between nations. I guarantee you, if it was better, they'd be saying so. Violent crime doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples in nation after nation. Now we've held back the tide, folks. We've held back the tide. We have 2.5 million people behind bars. We went from 100 per 100,000 in jail in 1970 to 800 per 100,000 Americans in jail, 500 per 100,000 in jail. Yeah. We put ever more people in jail. We medicated 30 million Americans, and that's a factor. You know, one principal told me, she said, the only thing that keeps us going is a Prozac salt lick in the teacher's lounge. We medicated ourselves, we incarcerated ourselves, we've held back the tide. The last couple of years, it's just come unglued. And in the middle of all of this, we have the moral, sacred obligation to keep our children safe. Do you understand? Look, folks, it's so easy to get people to fight. We can all, no two people can agree on everything. We can all find something to fight about, to find consensus, to find one thing everybody in this room can agree on passionately. That's a worthy endeavor. And can we all agree on one thing? Set aside every other agenda, set aside every other issue, and focus on taking the precious, infinitely precious lives entrusted to our care and send them home to their parents alive at the end of the day, yes? Oh, it's our job to educate them, but first and foremost, our baseline moral, sacred obligation is to take those precious lives and keep them safe, yes? When it comes to fire, we've nailed it. When it comes to violence, too often our only response is denial, yeah? So remember, the number of dead people completely underrepresents the situation. Whenever you hear somebody talk about the problem over any period of time, I want your baloney meter to drown them out. This is our group article by a crackpot journalist Don't worry about the kids today. They go to the lowest murder rate in 50 years. That's your baloney meter going off. What's wrong with comparing the murder rate between now and 50 years ago? Yeah. The leaps and bounds of medical technology across that time are saving ever more lives. So let's go back. Folks, there has never been, and again, this is all right out of my book, 120 free copies here when we're done, but there has never been a multiple homicide by a juvenile in the school. That's a very specific subset. A multiple homicide by a juvenile in the school has never happened in human history until 1975 in Brampton, Canada. That's right, it was in Canada. Double homicide by a juvenile in the school in Canada, 75. In 79, we had a double homicide by a juvenile in the school in San Diego. Female. There have been females commit these crimes, there will be more. In the 1970s, for the first time in human history, we had 2 double homicides by a juvenile in the school. One in Canada, one in America. In the 1980s, we had 2 double homicides by a juvenile in the school. One in Finland, one in America. In the 1990s, it began to explode. Moses Lake, Washington, Bethel, Alaska, Pearl, Mississippi, Paducah, Kentucky, my hometown of Jonesboro, Arkansas. Folks, in Jonesboro, an 11 and 13-year-old boy stole a van. They could barely reach the pedals. They could barely look over the dashboard. Jonesboro, Arkansas, 20 years ago. These are little kids, you understand? They stole a van. They drove across town. They broke into a law enforcement officer's house. They stole the hunting rifle and ammo. They drove back across town. They put themselves in a kill position overlooking the playground. The 11-year-old boy popped in the back door and pulled the fire alarm. Stop, 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 stop. What did he do? Popped in the back door. If the door had been locked, that crime would not have been possible. Step 1 to keeping our schools safe is keep the doors locked and who walks in that building. That seems too hard for some people right there. Folks, absolute minimum due diligence in this world today is keep those doors locked and control who walks in that building. If anybody can stagger in the back door and harm our children, we are negligent, negligent, negligent. And an 11-year-old boy pops in the back door, pulls the fire alarm, runs back out of the kill position. They wait till the kids come out. They wait till the fire door slams and shut. The door's locked now. And folks, I tell people when the kids are in the school, keep the doors locked. When the kids are outside, they got to get back inside fast. Think in terms of reverse fire drills. Think of a playground with 600 kids trapped in a chain link fence and one door's unlocked and get back in the building. When the kids are outside, think in terms of reverse fire drills. Think about getting them in that building fast. Children died clawing at that door. Children died trying to get back into that building. An 11 and 13-year-old boy opened fire, mercilessly, viciously gunned down 13 kids and 2 teachers. Ultimately, 5 would die. The all-time record juvenile mass murder in human history. Not just the record juvenile mass murder in the school. The all-time record juvenile mass murder in human history. This coming March will be the 20th anniversary. And folks, nobody thought a crime worse than that could possibly happen. Everybody thought this is the most horrible thing that will ever happen. It's a weird outlier. It'll never happen again. But we knew better, folks. Gloria de Gaetano and I wrote a book, Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill. The book was written after Jonesboro, before Columbine. We said Jonesboro's just the beginning. And the book was in early production when Columbine happened. We pulled the book out of production. We had it on Columbine. But folks, it's a matter of record. This book came out, my On Killing came out in 1995. Did a 95 edition of the book. I predicted these mass murders are coming. 3 years for Jonesboro, 4 years for Columbine. It's a matter of record. Get a 95 edition of the book. We know how to teach soldiers and cops to kill. We know the media is doing the same thing to our kids around the planet. And then Jonesboro happened in my hometown. And we wrote the book. And we predicted it was coming. The book was in early production when Columbine happened. We pulled it out, added Columbine. Now, folks, it's a matter of record. Every step of the way we knew it was coming. And folks, the following year, Jonesboro was beat a year later by Columbine. The Columbine killers murdered 13 between them, call it 6.5 each, if you will. Just a couple years later, in Erfurt, Germany, a high school student murdered 17 all by himself. Folks, the all-time record high school massacre by a student is Germany. But he was 19 years old. Maybe you don't qualify for our juvenile hit parade. So in 2009, in Binnen, Germany, a 17-year-old high school student murdered 15 all by himself. The all-time record juvenile mass murder in human history, Germany. The all-time record high school massacre by a high school student, Germany. Folks, this is a worldwide phenomenon. Take off our little glasses that look just at our nation and understand it is worldwide. Finland's had 3 juvenile mass murders in the schools. There was one in Taiwan, there was one in Thailand, there was one in Moscow, there was one in Argentina. These crimes have never happened in human history, and now they're everywhere. This is not right. This is not right. Never in human history we've seen anything remotely like this. And guns are part of the equation, folks, but nations with the most rigid gun laws have seen the most horrendous massacres. It's not about what's in their hand. It's about what's in their head. And so, folks, every step of the way I predicted what was coming. And folks, the FBI tells us these mass murders are doubling every decade, and the average body count is going up. The Mandalay Bay massacre, that massacre in the church in Texas, this is just one more step in the process. Every decade, the number of these massacres doubles and the body count goes up. And it is worldwide. And it's not going away until we stop feeding the sick movies and the sick video games and the sick TV shows to our kids. Folks, every major industrialized nation on the planet regulates children's access to the violent video games except us. Every major nation I can find regulates children's access to these media violence except us. And in the book it explains why. The Supreme Court decision. California, home of Silicon Valley, home of Hollywood. California overwhelmingly voted. 90% of the legislators in the state of California that regulate children's access to violent visual imagery, like every other nation on the planet. And the video game industry fought them all the way to the Supreme Court. The video game industry said, we have a constitutional First Amendment right to sell these games to any child at any age. You cannot stop us. You cannot regulate us in a way, shape, or form. The state of California sent a couple of junior lawyers. The video game industry sent the finest team of lawyers that money could possibly buy. Folks, one video game, Grand Theft Auto 5, one video game that the year it came out, made more money than the entire global music industry. One video game made more money than every rock concert on the planet. Every musician, every CD, every download on the planet the year it came out. And it's a cop-killing criminal simulator. And so, folks, 7 Supreme Court justices never played Pong in their life, overturned the California law and declared a constitutional right to sell these kids any child at any age. I'm not a big guy on laws, folks, but they wouldn't buckle their baby in their car seat if that wasn't the law. Yeah? If you'd have told my mom to buckle those 5 kids up, she said it wasn't possible. It became the law, we do it. When it comes to laws saying you can't have sex with my grandkids, I'm good with that. Yeah? And when it comes to laws saying you can't sell this sick stuff to our children, I'm good with that. And 2 Supreme Court justices dissented, and the dissents are in the book. It's terribly important. I think you'll find it of enormous value and lays a foundation to make a future. But folks, just again, kind of zooming out one over the world, we've been here before. And the tobacco industry fought tooth and nail. Tobacco fought tooth and nail for 50 years for one thing, to sell tobacco to children. The whole battle of tobacco was over one thing, to stop them from selling tobacco to children. We didn't ban tobacco, we ain't gonna ban media violence. All we're saying is don't sell this stuff to children. And we're the only major nation I can find that has no regulation on this stuff to our children. And so, folks, I'll tell you when we defeated the tobacco industry. It was 1964. My 2nd grade teacher told us cigarettes kill people. I went home and hid my dad's cigarettes. Remember doing anything like that? My dad convinced me it wasn't a very good idea. Yeah? But the power of that teacher. When our teacher told us tobacco kills people, we became the voters and the judges and the juries and the legislators that leased in this industry. Do you understand? So, folks, let me show you the good news out there, and then we're going to zoom in on a Band-Aid on this gaping wound. But here's some good news for you. Stanford Med School, in controlled double-blind medical research, Stanford Med School demonstrated a TV turnoff curriculum. And in Stanford Med School, replicated an entire K through 12 school, upstate Michigan. We turn off TV, movie, and video games. We turn it off for 10 days. There's a curriculum that builds up to it, and then they put themselves on a TV budget, a TV diet afterwards. And the result, in a K through 12 school, in blind, a double-blind study of cafeteria and playground behavior, violence and bullying down right at 48%. See, we got the brain scan studies, folks. We can show you what visual media does to a kid's brain. Fight or flight hormones flood through their brain. Nobody should be talking free speech. Nobody should be talking book banning. Nobody should be telling adults what they can or cannot do. But violent visual imagery inflicted upon children has an immediate impact. But those fight or flight hormones flush out in about 2 days. Oh, the classical conditioning can take decades. Operant conditioning has a half-life of about 6 months. Social learning models roll over in a day. But the fight or flight hormones flush out of the brain in about 2 days. Turn it all off. And folks, the obesity down. The National Institutes of Health have called this the single most effective juvenile obesity reduction program ever demonstrated. What's making our kids fat? What's the new factor? Snickers, Twinkies, Big Mac, Coca-Cola, refined sugar, corn syrup are all at least 50 years old. What's the new factor? They're sitting on the chubby little tails. The average kid, and they'd see me round up another pad for that real quick. Yeah? The average kid in America spends 50 to 60 hours a week in front of the tube. The average kid. And there's kids out there with 70, 80, 100 hours a week in front of the tube. Where does a kid find that time? They're sleep deprived. Completely interwoven with media intoxication is an epidemic of sleep deprivation. I'm going to change topics on you, but you'll see it completely weaves in. Folks, teen suicides have exploded to levels in our darkest nightmares we never imagined. Across Canada, across Europe, across Asia, across America, teen suicides are at levels in our darkest nightmares we never imagined. Now, I present to our military at all levels. I was first one to present on this in a Department of Defense-wide conference, a DoD-wide conference. It's been nailed down over and over again. In our military, we study every suicide intensely. Our military suicides have nothing to do with combat. A non-combat vet is as likely to take life as a combat vet. But a sleep-deprived person can be up to 5 times more likely to take their life. One of the greatest predictors of suicide is sleep deprivation. Look, we always knew impaired judgment was a factor in suicide, and alcohol and suicide are closely related. Folks, alcohol creates impaired judgment. You make a bad decision, never had a chance to rethink it, yes? But the most pervasive form of impaired judgment is sleep deprivation. After 18 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.08 legally drunk. After 24 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.10 legally drunk. After 2 days without sleep, you are psychotic. Anybody, graduate of Army Ranger School, will tell you about hallucinations after 2 or 3 days without sleep, yes? But folks, we have an epidemic of sleep deprivation. I had a cop tell me. So here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. Scream it from the mountainside. When you send your kids to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No laptop in the room, no TV, no cell phone in the room. They have got to go to the room and sleep. The cop told me, he said, I had a good girl. He said she was an A student. He said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night. You can trust me. So I did. I trusted her. And she took her life. And I never knew the hell my little girl was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. And she's up all night long trying to defend herself, trying to find somebody that'll talk back and protect her. He said, my little girl was sleep deprived and bullied to death. And the one thing on earth I could have done for her was take her cell phone every night and make her turn off all the bad things of this world. And folks, drug overdoses have exploded. Their drugs aren't new. The impaired judgment is new. And traffic fatalities have been coming down decades to take population up, the number of people killed in traffic accidents down, and now they're back up again. We know one of the greatest predictors of traffic accidents is sleep deprivation. Truck drivers required by law to get enough sleep. Folks, the three big killers of our kids: suicide, traffic fatalities, and drug overdoses. And sleep deprivation and impaired judgment is the new factor in all those. You understand? We have a horrendously sleep-deprived population. And it interacts with absolutely everything that's happening. They're saturated. They never get a moment away. They never get a chance to rest and fully turn that stuff off. When they do the 10-day TV turn-off, the one thing everybody talks about is how well-rested they are. How well-rested they are. And so, folks, obesity down. Can we all agree that playgrounds and parks are essential to the health of a city? Playgrounds and parks essential to the health of a city, yes. What's it mean you have empty parks, empty playgrounds? You have a sick city. Every time you drive past the park, the playground on a nice day, there's one or two lonely kids out there. You tell yourself, we have a sick city. There's thousands of kids out there sitting in their house, playing video games, watching TV out in this park right now. And of course it's a factor in obesity. Of course it's the new factor. Can you forgive a teacher for a little bit of a harsh statement? Teacher told me, and it was brilliant. She said on the first day of school, two kinds of kids walk in the front door. The suntan healthy kid and the pale, pasty, chubby kid. Yeah. She said this, I want you to watch for this. She said, you will never see a suntan fat kid. Yeah. Watch for it. She's nailed it. So folks, obesity down. The single most effective juvenile obesity reduction program ever demonstrated. But here's the biggie. Math scores on state standardized testing, K through 12 school. Math scores up 15%. Verbal scores, K through 12, up 18% on state standardized testing. Of course the test scores are going up. The fight or flight hormones are flush out of the brain. They're not being bullied. They're not being attacked. They're not being bullied. They're not being attacked. They're not sleep deprived. Of course the test scores are going up. And every teacher on the planet wants to raise the test scores and reduce the bullying. When you get a chance, and again, it's all in the book. When you get a chance, check out their website, www.takethechallenge. Take the TV challenge, the TV turn-off challenge. Take the challenge now.net. First thing you do, thank you, sir, thank you very much. First thing you do is look at the testimonials. Look at the testimonials. Folks, the number 2 testimonial is an AP Wire article about a K through 12 school, turn it off and raise test scores double digits. Take the challenge now. Thank you, buddy. Well done. Take the challenge now.net. So folks, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Things are bad worldwide, and they're going to get worse. Well, we predicted this Mandalay Bay massacre, that these massacres, mothers murdering their children, fathers committing suicide and murdering their family, they happen in greater and greater frequency. Folks, there were 2 cases week before last where a mama murdered her children. One mother shot her children while they slept and woke her husband up and said, babe, I killed the kids. Another mother shoved her 2 little children in the oven and turned the oven on to murder them. You hear about that one? Look at it, look for it. There was a time it would have been the front page of every newspaper, but these onesies and twosies aren't even making the national news anymore. But we've got an answer. We have an answer. Never doubt that a small group of determined individuals can change the course of a civilization. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Who said it? Margaret Mead, anthropologist. Never doubt that a small group of determined individuals can change the course of a civilization. It's the only thing that ever has. Education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. Who said it? Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. Folks, across America, my educators are ready to give up. Some of the educators are just in despair. The kids get worse, the parents get worse. Don't give up, please. Don't give up, because education is the answer. Folks, prison can hold back the darkness. Prisons hold in the darkness. Cops hold back the darkness. Only education can light up the darkness. Yes? Who said it? I did. You can quote me. Yeah. Prisons hold in the darkness. Cops can hold back the darkness. Only education can light up the darkness. So believe in who you are. Now, right now, what I want to talk to you about is just like a little series of BandAids that we've got to slap on this wound. So we know the long-term solution, but I want you to understand that we haven't been sitting still while our children are being murdered. We've taken major, major steps. Number one, we deter these little killers. Now, folks, the greatest achievement is the crime that didn't happen. Now, what does the killer fear? Workplace killer, school killer, domestic terrorist, international terrorist? What do they all fear? They're not all afraid to die. Some of them want to die. What do they fear? They fear failure. If they cannot get a body count, they've given their life for nothing. And if they think there's somebody there that'll stop them before they get a body count, they won't even try. Now, there has never been a multiple homicide in a school when there was an armed cop present in the building. I know there was a cop at Columbine, he never got in the building. The killers tried to ambush him from a second floor window. The killers had already wounded one person who would later die from lack of medical attention, and the killers engaged the cop in a blazing gunfight. From a second floor window, the cop fired 3 magazines of ammo, didn't hit once. What choice did he have to leave? He's out of ammo. If that cop had had a rifle in his vehicle, Columbine would have a totally different story. So see, if there is a cop there, who are they going to try to kill first? Yeah, they're going to try to kill that cop. But folks, I can't find a single case, I might be wrong, Columbine's kind of borderline, where multiple homicide happened in a school, there was an armed cop present in the building. It's not right. It's not normal. But one thing we can do is having armed cops in our schools, and we're doing that. And to a certain degree, it works. But it is not right. Never lose your sense of outrage that we have to do this. Across Asia, across Europe, across North America, across Latin America, we have thousands and thousands of cops in our schools that stop our kids from killing each other. And to a certain degree, it works. But it is not normal. Never lose your sense of outrage. Never let yourself think it's business as usual to live in a world where we put thousands of cops in our schools to stop our kids from killing each other. Now, one of the greatest deterrents out there is our drills. I believe in every single school there's some little kid thinking about it. What's he fear? He fears failure. Do a lockdown drill. And rifle armed cops come thundering down the hallway. What your little want to be thinking? Oh, better not try it here. They're ready for me, yeah? The ultimate achievement, the crime that didn't happen, the kid we didn't have to shoot. The drills can be a deterrent. But it is not normal. Never lose your sense of outrage that every kid has a practice hunkering down and hiding for when the kids come to kill them. I tell everybody, every time your kid does a lockdown, get mad. Not at the school. Don't you dare get mad at the school. They're doing the right thing. You get mad at the sick world, where every kid has a practice hunkered down to hiding when somebody comes to kill them, because this is not business as usual. This is not normal. Never let yourself think this is the new normal. Never lose your sense of outrage. We have to do these things. We deter them by the thousands. We detect them. Every educator, every cop in this room, I'll bet you know 1 or 2 cases where we caught a kid with a hit list. We caught him online trying to build bombs. We caught him with a gun, and it never got in the national news. I see a lot of heads nodding out there. If you know 1 or 2 that wannabes been nailed in the early stage, if you know 1 or 2 that never got in the news, how many are there nationwide? Every year we nail hundreds of these kids. I believe today that Columbine killers would have been caught 3 times over. Now, folks, the major tool that we have is a tip line. If we don't have a very effective anonymous tip line in place, we've missed one of the major links. There is always some kid that knows about it. I believe today that Columbine killers would have been caught 3 times over. One thing we do is a tip line, and they're not paying me a nickel to say so, but check out PSST World. They've won an award in California. Their online anonymous reporting, they have an enormous impact. www.psstworld.com. It's just one of many. They've got a booth here. I think they're doing a great job. If you got a tip line that's working, great. But examine it. The tip line is a major, major tool. I believe it by itself might have stopped the Columbine killers. So psstworld.com, yeah? So folks, we deter them by the thousands. We detect them by the hundreds. We defeat them. Ain't gonna be no more Columbines. We're never gonna sit on the perimeter while children are dying. Cops are going in. Folks, a lot of you may not have heard what happened in In Spokane, Washington, 10 years ago. Cops were in the door in minutes, put a rifles looking at kids. Spokane, Washington, 10 years ago. Kid survived. Nobody died that day. Cops on scene tell me first words out of the kid's mouth was, "How'd you get here so fast?" Folks, every cop is practiced going there like thunder, shooting that kid. Active mass murder, active killer. Don't call it active shooter, or we'd be real busy during deer season, huh? But every cop is practiced going that door and shooting that kid before he gets a body count. But it is not normal. Never lose your sense of outrage. That every cop is a practice going to that door and shooting our kids. Folks, never accept what's happening as business as usual. Never let yourself think this is the new norm. This is not right. We got to do these things. Since we love our kids, we love our way of life, we got to do these things. For we deter them by the thousands, we detect them by the hundreds, so we defeat a handful every year. Medical technology prevents 4 to 5 just since 1970. And still, every couple of years, there's a new record dead by violence in our schools. So understand we're doing some of the right things. But there's a few nuts and bolts I want you to put in place right now. There's just a few nuts and bolts I think are of enormous value. Folks, come with me to Sandy Hook Elementary School, 2 years after the massacre. By the way, folks, I've been predicting elementary massacres for years. Nationwide, we have homicide seminars. The Missouri State Police runs one every other year, one in Utah every 3rd year. I presented at all the homicide seminars. Homicide detectives from across America gather a couple times a year. These seminars I present. I tell my homicide detectives a concept I call precursor crimes. If a crime has happened anywhere in the world, it's probably going to happen in America pretty soon. And I've been predicting elementary massacres for years. Folks, in Dunblane, Scotland, a man got in a kindergarten class and murdered 16 kindergartners. And for years, I, with all my heart, I believe the elementary massacres coming. It's amazing they haven't. And then I was in Hartford, Connecticut, training 200 Connecticut cops on the day of the Sandy Hook massacre in Newtown, Connecticut. And the first hour before the crime ever happened, I told them what I'm telling people: we're going to see elementary massacres. Then reports of Sandy Hook came in. Just this week, early this week in Northern California, I think somebody clearly attempted to do another elementary school massacre. They were stopped. We'll talk about that. What info we have at this time, we'll talk about that. But folks, I want you to understand that we haven't been sitting still. We take major actions. But there's something very, very wrong out there. Around the planet, children are committing crimes at children like nothing in human history. We've got to do these things. So, folks, I told you for years I've been talking about elementary massacres. I'll tell you what's next. I pray that I'm wrong. We're going to see daycare massacres. It's just a matter of time. Belgium had a daycare massacre. Look at this up, 2009 in Belgium. On the first anniversary of the death of the actor who played the Joker, the tragic death of the young actor who played the Joker, with orange hair and a butcher knife in Belgium. 2009, this guy knocks on the front door of a daycare center and quotes a line from the movie. I have one question. That was the Joker's line when he crashed Harvey Dent's party in the movie. I have one question. Where's Harvey Dent? His children will do, and he murders Harvey Dent's children. Everybody connect the dots here. First anniversary of the death of the actor who played the Joker, with orange hair, quoting a line from the movie, and a butcher knife. He murders one daycare worker, wounds another. That's why we know what he said at the door. One survived. And hacks and stabs 12 little babies in the crib. Folks, China's had repeated daycare massacres. Across China, axes, hatchets, knives. A guy with a hammer in a daycare in China hammered the little skulls in one by one. China's censored sex in the media. Violence is rampant, and they paid the same price. So I pray that I'm wrong. When you hear about that daycare massacre, you say, Grossman said that was coming. We have raised a vicious, vicious generation. The good kids are very good. The bad ones are very bad. They've given us crimes at children like nothing in human history. And never forget, it is a worldwide phenomenon. Now they're going to give us crimes as adults in our darkest nightmares we never imagined. The Mandalay Bay massacre, that church massacre in Texas, this is just one more step in the process. And so, folks, what I want you to understand then is, in spite of everything, every couple of years, we get a new record dead by violence. So come with me to Sandy Hook Elementary School. Anyway, 2 years after the Sandy Hook massacre, it was in the news. The parents of 2 of the murdered children in Sandy Hook were suing the school. Stop. Where have they been for the last 2 years? Where'd all the other parents go? I'll tell you what happened, folks. I believe it happens every time. I believe one by one they set the parents of the dead kids down, They put a great big check in front of them. They said, we made mistakes. You don't have to go to court. You can get on with your life. We're going to give you a big settlement check. You're going to get a check every year for the next 20 years. All we ask is to seal the record. GM kept the ignition switch secret for a decade by sealing the record. It's blood money. It's hush money. And you got to respect the parents that took the money and moved on, but also respect the parents of 2 dead kids. After 2 years of negotiation, said, you don't get it. We don't want your stinking blood money. We don't want your dang hush money. We want the world to know what you did wrong. And we don't ever want it to happen again. So this is terribly important. Here are the 2 things we're being sued for. Number 1, no laminate film on the glass and the front door. Our doors are locked. We buzz people in. Your kids are safe. It didn't slow him down for a second. He shot out the glass, stepped in and murdered 26 people. Folks, since the 1960s, we've had the technology to put that laminate film on those windows. There is an Illinois company. They're worldwide famous. They're doing amazing work. They're one of the sponsors to put this together. Check them out when you get a chance. www.clear-armor, ARMOR.com, also known as True Armor. Now, folks, this slot window in the classroom door, about 1 square foot. For $25 a square foot, we put this laminate film on that window. You can shoot holes in it. You beat on it, ain't gonna re-shoe and open the door. Now, we don't have the full word on what happened this week in Northern California. I'll have the chance to talk to some of those people soon. But everything we have says that guy tried very hard to get into that building. He tried, one cop said he tried and tried and tried to get in that elementary school to murder those children. But he couldn't even get in the front door. Now, if there's any glass on that door, it must have had the laminate film, do you understand? Otherwise, he'd have shot it out, opened the door, and walked in and murdered those children. And Sandy Hook Elementary School, it didn't do what he could to lock the door. He shot it out and walked in. It didn't even slow him down. Any glass on the door or beside the door. Now, you don't have to do all glass. It's good for it's called hurricane glass often. It's not a bad thing. The state of West Virginia put it on all windows in all schools in this state. But you don't have to put it on all windows, just that any glass on the door or beside the door where you can shoot out the glass and open the door must have the laminate film. And the initial report we have from that elementary school in Northern California, it would appear that that's what they did. And if that's what happened, he couldn't get in that building. If that's what happened, that glass saved countless lives. A couple $100 of laminate film on the front door. If you were on the jury, half the cost of the school building goes into fire code, but they can't spend a couple $100 on laminate film on the front door. If you were on the jury for Sandy Hook, would you not be enraged? All right, here's the second thing being sued for. There was no way to lock the classroom door from the inside. The only way to lock the door was step into the hallway, expose yourself to the killer, and everybody in the hallway died, and have the fine motor control put the key in the lock. Now, there's a simple answer in being used worldwide. Have the classroom doors locked all the time. I taught Baltimore schools 3 years ago. They tell me every single classroom door in Baltimore is locked all the time. Propped open and locked, shut and locked, your choice. But it's always locked. Kick out the prop, shut the door, boom, we're secured that fast. The problem is not money. The problem is too much trouble. Lock the doors. 2 years ago, I trained a school district north of Chicago here in Illinois. They tell me every classroom door is locked all the time. Propped open and locked between classes, shut and locked during classes, yes? And so, folks, there's 2 simple things we can be doing right now. Have our classroom doors locked. Have those exterior doors locked. And put the laminate film on any glass on the door, beside the door. It's budget dust. It's budget dust. I'm talking just a couple $1,000s. And those 2 things by themselves, either one of those things at Sandy Hook would have saved the lives of those children. And I believe this, we'll get the info later, but this appears to be what saved the lives of the children in California. Which one do you want to be responsible? You want to be responsible for the school that saved those kids? Or you want to be the one responsible for Sandy Hook Elementary School, where the children were slaughtered? Yes. The simple things we can be doing right now. I know this is hard for so many of my educators. My educators are just gentle creatures who believe in what they're doing passionately. They didn't sign on for a world where we had to put laminate film on the glass and keep our classroom doors locked. We made this world. We can change this world. But right now, we got to keep those little ones safe, yes? Now, one other thing about Sandy Hook Elementary School. And those 2 classrooms, the only ones that survived, were 2 little kids that made a dash for the door. A couple, I've heard, there are a couple of kids that made a dash for the door. Now, what do you want your kids to do? You want them to sit and wait for their turn to die? Because that's what most of them did. If we don't teach the kids what to do, we're teaching them to do nothing. And that's what they did. Now look, this is kind of like stop, drop, and roll in school. You all remember stop, drop, and roll? Stop, drop, and roll was controversial. It came out. You can't teach that to kindergartners. They have nightmares about catching a fire. No, not have nightmares. How many of y'all were taught stop, drop, and roll as kids? Then we go home and have nightmares about catching on fire. Yeah. Now, folks, it's been demonstrated again and again. Preparation does not cause anxiety. Denial causes anxiety. We teach them what to do, and they feel better, yes? Again, I've been on the road for 20 years, come December, 250 days a year. Waiting at home for me is my high school sweetheart, my bride of 42 years. She was 15 when I proposed to her. We are from Arkansas. 2 years later, she married a crazy Army private. She's been on this ride ever since. More precious than life itself. Yeah. The only people on the planet more precious than her are my 2 little grandkids next door. I'll sell the kids to you cheap right now, no problem. Grandbaby's a different story, yes? And what can I do? I'm never home. So I sat them down and I told them, you're sitting in your classroom. They were both elementary school that year. I told them, you're sitting in your classroom at school. And Grandpa's a bad man. If somebody comes in that room and starts hurting people, that's your signal to get out of there. What's your signal? Well, somebody starts hurting people. Right. So Grandpa's a bad man. I come in the door of your classroom and start hurting people. You throw the first book at me, throw the second book while you're running, get past me, get out this door. No, no, no. Do it again. Throw it hard. Throw it in my face. See, one block my face. I can't hurt anybody. That was fun, Grandpa. Let's do that again. Yeah. I'm so sorry we live in a world we're going to teach that to our kids. We made this world. We can change this world. But right now, we're going to do whatever it takes to keep those little ones safe. And we got a pretty good model out there, run, hide, fight. Just understand that run, hide, fight is not a sequence. It's a set of options, you understand? Just to make it clearer, we talk about fight, hide, run. Now, I'm a cop. I'm a reserve cop here in Illinois. We had the honor to move to Illinois 10 years ago. We still sell Arkansas jokes, but we're proud members of Mascoutah, Illinois, outside of Scott Air Force Base. And I'm a cop, and when I'm home, I'm always armed. But folks, what we tell people, if you're in a safe place, stay there. Too many people's only answer is run away. Where? In the hallway, like Sandy Hook, they all gunned down? Run away. Where? Outside, like Jonesboro, they gunned down? In that classroom with the door locked, provided you can't shoot out the glass and open the door. In that classroom, the door locked is a very safe place. You decide for yourself, think it through. Absolutely fireproof, designed to survive tornadoes and boiler explosions, under the supervision of a trained adult. If you're in a safe place, stay there. If it's not safe, get out of there and have a plan. Folks, I teach the park police across America. Just worked with a bunch of them in Indiana this week. I was a park police in a major park, and they had a little elementary school tucked away in the corner of the park for the employees. And they asked me to do a site survey. As always, I learned more from them than they did from me. A little elementary teacher told me, she said, I have a classroom full of precious first graders. She said, my classroom door is locked all the time. She said, nobody on the planet can stop me from locking my door. They can fire me, but they will never stop me from keeping that door locked. She said, if somebody's busting down that door, I'm going to take this stool, I'm going to break that window, I'm going to rip down the curtains and throw them over the glass and toss my kids out the window one by one. It was the ground floor. I was in love. I was in love. If I want a happily married man of 42 years, I'd propose on the spot, yeah? Every teacher in America should be thinking that way. What's plan B? It's a foolish rabbit that doesn't have another exit to his hole, yes? I trained a school district here in Illinois. They gave every teacher a sticker that said plan B. Put it on the window of your plan to go out. Have a plan. And nationwide, I taught a school district in Alabama just a month or so ago. They're giving every teacher pepper spray. Folks, they're doing goofy things in the classroom. Baseball bats in every classroom. It's not a bad idea, but what's that 120-pound, 60-year-old teacher supposed to do, yeah? They're putting wasp spray. Have you heard of that wasp spray in every classroom? Yeah, we got to get a wasp spray, see? We're really going to spray the bad guy. They can't stop us from doing this, yeah? Well, best I can tell, there's two kinds of wasp spray. One's like shooting them with a squirt gun. The other one, game over, baby. Die a cockroach, he's dead right now. So we all agree we should not just hand every teacher a gun. That's what they're doing. They're giving everybody deadly force. Give them pepper spray. And we truly, folks, ain't paying us a nickel to say so. Go to Amazon.com, Saber brand. Saber, they're the only ones who have good quality control, military and law enforcement. Amazon.com, Saber Red Pepper Gel. Like I said, I trained a school district in Alabama. They give it to everybody. You know, the first two to die at Sandy Hook was their principal and another administrator. 2 women charged an armed man. Those educators will die for our children. The first 2 to die were 2 women who just charged the killer. That's their instinct, to lay their life down for their babies. One principal said, give me something beside my keys in my hand when the bad guy comes to hurt my kids. You understand? And so just consider that and think about things we can do. But one other thing we're going to do, and I want you to think about this, it's terribly important. It's something we can do right now. We can do it a day. For minimal fee. Folks, let's go back to the fire guy. The fire guy really is our A student. And the fire alarm is an amazing piece of technology. Under stress, color vision goes out, except red. We're designed to see red under stress. Why? Blood, survival data. What color does the fire alarm go out the door? Blood red, yeah? There's powerful science behind that. Under stress, fine motor control goes out. What do I do? Tell them, know there's a fire. Grab and pull, those are gross motor skills. Here's the magic in the system. There is a hardwired network straight from the fire alarm to the fire guy. Have you ever wondered what it costs our civilization to have a separate network of wiring from every fire alarm to the fire guy? He knows what pull station's pulled. He knows instantly. Violence has happened. What I got to do? Well, folks, pull out your trusty cell phone, because I tell you, the answer to fire is always get out. Having the fire alarm on the way out is a good idea. The answer to violence is not always get out. Whatever your answer is, it's got to be on your body. And the cell phone's a great answer. Bang, another kid died. Bang, another kid died. Fine motor control shot, near vision's out, color vision's out. I challenge you to put in the passcode under extreme stress. You did, put in the passcode. Now what do you do? Flip the proper screen. Now what do you do? Dial 911. I fumble the dial under normal conditions. I'll give you case after case where people could not dial 911. You did, you dialed 911, good for you. Here comes the hard part. Well, gunshots are washing out the sound. You know how loud noises wash out sound? Go to YouTube and listen to the audio tape of the Aurora Theater 911 call. A guy managed to call in the middle of that horrendous massacre. He managed to call 911, and all you can hear is gunshots. On average, every 6 shots, somebody's dead. Boom, 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 and you cannot barely discern that this guy's trying to talk. The dispatchers say it louder. The dispatcher says, shout it, and then he's dead. It was physically impossible to report what was happening. Why can't we have some violence like we do for fire? Well, we do, folks. I'm a huge fan. All you cops out there, your homework assignment is to download the free app, Hero 911. Hero 911. Out of the millions of apps on the App Store, it's only one limited just to law enforcement. It's a free app, but the teacher gets an app, and you can set it up in a day. They download it, they can download it, and the cops got the free app, and we've got it everywhere. We'll put it's in like over 200 schools, 200 school districts nationwide. Churches are putting it in, colleges are putting it in. A sheriff in Indiana put it in every daycare in every school. A sheriff in Indiana put it in every daycare, every school in his county. Uses 911 funds to do it. But the teacher gets an app, a big red button, taps it, swipes it, taps it again. Look what it does. It speed dials 911. It speed dials 911. It displays some map location. We know where in the building guy is. You don't have cell phone combo, it hooks right through your Wi-Fi network. All your educators have got their cell phones walked in the Wi-Fi network anyway, but it gives a map location. It alerts everybody else in the building we have an incident. It lets everybody else in 5-mile radius know. Folks, that lockdown in Northern California was brilliant. There was something happening in the area, and they thought he might come here, and so they locked down. And it was a good thing to do, yes? How many of you would have even gotten the word if something was happening? So, and here's the important part, here's the best part. It instantly alerts all participating law enforcement. They got that Hero 911 app, it goes straight from the teacher's phone to the cop's phone. Folks, it was set up by accident in Indiana recently. How do you accidentally tap it, swipe it, tap it again? It's okay. It was a great rehearsal. Didn't cost anything. It was a great rehearsal. The first cop was to that teacher in 30 seconds flat. Off-duty cop driving by the school, bailed out, just put his car in park, bailed out, charged in the door, and was to her in 30 seconds flat. Now, folks, 5 minutes later, all the king's horses and all the king's men will never put those kids back together again. It's the person that gets there in the first minute that's going to make all the difference. You understand? And we don't care who he is. We don't care who he is. We want him there in the first minute. If he's a law enforcement officer who's legally authorized to carry a gun, we want him there right now. Having somebody there in the first 30 seconds is infinitely better than having 1,000 15 minutes later. Because 15 minutes later, all the king's horses and all the king's men will never put those kids back together again. So folks, their website on this, you all got a copy of schoolguide.com, and I am a huge fan. And so far, they haven't made me a nickel to say so. But I'm a huge fan of what they're doing there. They've got an amazing program going. It's going in everywhere. It's an Illinois-based program. They're worthy of our attention. It is, the fire alarm is something we could do right now. Keep those classroom doors locked. Put that laminate film on the glass and put in place a program that gets the cops there right now. This all first touched my life in March in 1998. I got a call from my aunt in Florida. Dear God, is that Joe's school? I went out to my son's school on the day of the Jonesboro Massacre. It wasn't his school, it was the other school. It never occurred to me that more than one school in my town that day. I went to the other school, I offered my help, they said, thank you, we know who you are, we need you. Now we were preparing, it's another whole class, another whole topic on the aftermath and the debriefings and keeping the media over there and having a place for your people to have space and time. Now it's the wee hours of the morning. Just a handful of us left planning for the next day. Right outside that door, an 11 and 13-year-old boy had gunned down 13 kids and 2 teachers. One of the counselors had been in the hospital all day long, came out to us, and she had to debrief. She had to talk. You can imagine what it must have been like in that hospital. Over a dozen kids, over a dozen families. Mom and dad, brothers and sisters, aunts and grandma and grandpa trying to come to terms. They knew who the kids were. Within minutes, they knew who the kids were. They knew the kids. Why have these 2 little boys committed a crime like nothing ever before in human history? Why have they slaughtered our little girls? Periodically, the doctor would come out and pull aside 2 parents, and mom would start sobbing. The doctor said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We did all we could, I'm sorry. She said the worst that was there. She said, we've been there quite a while. When this one lady came in, and she's all alone. She's the only one in that room alone. And she sits down and she's just staring off into the distance. The counselor drops down on one knee and takes her hand and said, can I help you? She said, that lady looked at me and she told me, my little girl's dead. My little girl's dead. She's one of the ones that's murdered today. She just said, I just want to know, how do we get my baby back? What am I supposed to do to pick up the body? There was a cop there that told her all the ones murdered today had been sent to the state capitol in Little Rock, 100 miles away for autopsies. When they were finished for their baby's body, they would call her, and she could tell them what funeral home to send the body to. And she said, funeral home? Funeral home, we can't afford a funeral. We can't even afford a funeral. That mama didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. But she was infinitely wealthy with her little girl, filled with vast potential. And this morning she hugged her baby, the most precious thing on the planet, not knowing it was the last time. And there's nobody in that world but that mama and her baby. There's no husband, there's no friends, there's no family, just a mama and her baby. And this morning, all she wants to do, this evening, all she wants to do is wrap her baby's cold body in a blanket and take her home to an empty house. We failed that mama. And Jonesboro, Pearl, Paducah, Springfield, Littleton, Edinburgh, Santee, San Diego, Moses Lake, Bethel Lake, Red Lake, Chardon, Ohio, Columbine, Sandy Hook, again and again and again and again, we failed those children. But we saw an example of the way it could work. in upstate California just this week. They did not fail their children. And we here do solemnly swear that we will take their precious lives and trust it to our care and make them as safe as humanly possible. And as you do that for the rest of your lives, as you go about that most noble and virtuous of all endeavors to educate and protect our future, as you do that, may God bless you, your family, every endeavor, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Colonel. And thank all of you for coming. Please, there's an evaluation sheet of the seminar today in your packet. If you would complete that and drop it off with us. And there'll be a book signing immediately after. Nate's going to say something about that. Other than that, I thank you very much. Good day.
Hey, thanks again. We have a true honor, Carter. It's a pleasure to co-sponsor the conference with you. 1 o'clock, we're going to clean up 400.